Good morning, everybody, and a happy Monday morning to you. I hope everybody's weekend has gone really well. There's a lot in here, so let's just dive in, shall we? Let's go. We're going to start off with Beatrice and Eugenie. They apparently had a mom's night out. The two of them were wearing all black, and they went for the launch of Mr. Potter's Steakhouse, which is a new eatery on London's affluent Park Lane, it's being said. I don't know where that is, but okay. Nothing wrong with the two of them going out for some delicious steak without the hubbies and without the kids. Love it, and I hope they had a delicious dinner. All right, let's move on. All right. Let's move on now to Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Gloucester. She is the patron of St. John's School in Leatherhead, for those of you who don't know. And she went for a visit on April 23rd. Just so you guys know, she succeeded her father-in-law, the late Duke of Gloucester, who was the school's first royal patron from 1923 until his death in 1974. So she's been long affiliated with this school, and she's played a significant role in the school. Her last visit there, by the way, was in 2014, and I love the color of her outfit. Moving on. Next up, we have Princess Anne on April 15th. As president of the Duke of Edinburgh Commonwealth Study Conference, she held a dinner at Windsor Castle for the Commonwealth Study Conference, Canada's President Council. I love this blue dress. I've never seen it before. I love that. Now let's keep on with Princess Anne. She's still in Çanakkale in Turkey. And on April 25th, she attended and I'm quoting, a dawn service. So the sun was rising as she was doing this. And this was done within the scope of the commemoration ceremony for the 110th anniversary of the Çanakkale land battles at Anzac Cove on the Gallipoli Peninsula. It's being referred to as the Spirit of Peace ceremony. And as you see in the picture, she gave a speech and then she laid an absolutely gorgeous wreath and paid her respects. Now, again, this was the sunrise ceremony, but she wasn't done. Then she and her husband attended the Australian national service, which took place at the Lone Pine Cemetery on the Gallipoli Peninsula. Now remember, at each of these ceremonies, she did the same thing where she laid the wreath. Now remember, this is all to honor the sacrifices of the Australian and the New Zealand forces who were killed in the Gallipoli landings in 1915. And these are services that are going on all around the world. And for those of you who don't know, the word Anzac, A-N-Z-A-C, is shortened for troops of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. I did not know that before. Anyway, so Anne went to several services. Again, she laid several wreaths. And yeah, I think she's doing a great job. Now, she finished up her work, and then back in the UK, it was the Duchess of Edinburgh's turn because she led the Anzac Day dawn service at Hyde Park. That also took place, obviously, on April 25th, which is the National Day of Commemoration observed everywhere. Sophie was representing King Charles for these commemorations in London. Now, this particular service marks the beginning of an entire day of commemorative events for Sophie. So first, of course, we had, again, the dawn service where Sophie laid the wreath of honor to fallen servicemen and women. And as you can see, she did a fabulous job. Yep, she made sure that the wreath didn't fall over, which, listen, guys, she's up before dawn for this event. I think it's important to make sure you do a good job. I also noticed she's wearing all black, which is lovely, and the hat, which we'll be discussing just a little bit later on. So, Sophie did the ceremony, and just like what happened with Princess Anne, during the ceremony, the sun comes up, which I think is just a lovely, you know what I mean? You're sitting there in the dark, and as you're honoring these people, the sun rises. I just think that's lovely. Now, this, as I just said, this was not the end of the day for her. That was just the first thing she did. The second thing she did was lay a wreath at the cenotaph, and she, again, was the only person there. All right, let me rephrase that. She was the only royal there. on this particular day. But again, I think she did a lovely job for being the only royal that was there. And we also know that after this, there was a parade with all of the military people. There was one guy I saw on TV, 102 years old, and with every step, he was twirling his cane. It was really cute to watch. Now, at some point, I'm sure she must have gotten a smidge of rest, because the next thing she did was go and participate in a service of commemoration and Thanksgiving at Westminster Abbey. One more thing I may not have told you about the Anzac Day. The service has been held in London since the first anniversary of the Anzac landings at Gallipoli in 1916, and George V attended the service at Westminster Abbey. It's just amazing. Anyway, Sophie looked lovely. It looked like a lovely service. And then these articles started popping out because of her hat. And what people are saying, or what people noticed, was that hat that she's wearing belongs to Lady Louise. And I personally think it's lovely that mother and daughter can share the same clothing, that they're apparently the same size. Nothing wrong with that. I think Sophie looks lovely. A big thank you to Remoulade Sauce for showing us what she was wearing. Time to move into our Harry-Meghan news. Let's go back in time. Do you guys remember when the weatherman, Alex Beresford, attacked Piers Morgan online on TV? He's mixed race, but his attack was really nasty. And come to find out, Piers Morgan had been a good friend to this guy, and it helped him with his career. And he attacked Piers to the point where Piers got so upset, he stormed off the show. I'm sure most of you remember that. It was really nasty what this guy did. Well, now it looks like there might be another angle to it, if that makes sense, because it just came out, thanks to this weatherman. Meghan Markle sent this guy jam and some goodies and sent it to this Alex Beresford guy and said, like, here you go, here's some of my stuff. And everybody's like, wait a minute, how does she know this man? She doesn't know this man. Well, come to find out, she does. And it looks like that attack online towards Piers was orchestrated by Meghan Markle. So she said to this guy, why don't you tell him off on TV? And more than likely, that's what happened. Have you guys ever found out or realized that every time there's an attack on him, she's behind it in some way? You know, even the calls to the head of the, ITV demanding him be fired was orchestrated by her. Everything has been orchestrated by her. So now we know for a fact they're in contact, and nobody would have known had this guy not put that post up. So there you go. Now you know that the whole thing was more than likely a setup. That's my opinion. Otherwise, why would they be in contact? Nobody would have known about it had this guy not been stupid enough to post that on Instagram. All right, let's move on. All right, next up, I just want to touch on this. This Twitter user pointed out that William, in appointing Jason Kanoff, lets you know that what Jason said is to be trusted. He's the one who talked about the bullying. What other people are saying is that this is a public dig at Harry to show that he doesn't care what Harry thinks. Personally, I think if he wasn't trustworthy, William wouldn't have hired him. So that's what I think is going on. All right, let's move on. All right, this was the next thing that came out, which I thought was hilarious. Apparently, Martha Stewart, who, by the way, is 83, appeared on Access Hollywood with Jose Andres, or as Meghan says, Jose Andres, who, by the way, we already know is going to be on the second episode of Meghan's show. And so we know that, listen, Martha Stewart is the original influencer, okay? That's just all it is to it. It's the Martha Stewart era. So she was asked really what she thought about Meghan's show on Wednesday, and Martha Stewart goes, I haven't seen it. Is it out yet? Has it started? She had absolutely no idea. Well, what's really funny about the whole thing is I wonder if she's telling the truth, because it was already shown that Meghan's one pot pasta was a direct takeoff of Martha Stewart's. And there's no way Martha Stewart's not aware of that. All right, let's move on. Okay, next up, they're saying that the girls in Montecito are mean girls because Meghan's lifestyle brand hasn't taken off as expected. And so now they're calling her the Duchess of Sussex. They're calling her Pumpkin Spice and Walmart. They're saying everything Meghan does scrapes the bottom of the barrel. It's bargain basement. She has just vapid lessons in self-love for her podcast. Her As Ever products have not gone over well. There's just been issue after issue, and her Netflix show was absolutely panned. People haven't forgotten that the only reason she got the platform that she did is because of who she married. And she's just not that nice. People don't like her, and they have not forgotten what she did to her family. Moving on. All right, while they were in New York, Harry did this. Somehow this doesn't surprise me. He walked into a conference room in Brooklyn to meet youth leaders working in tech safety, policy, and innovation. He did what William does. He made his way through various tables in the room, and then he took to the stage to talk about the hopes and harms of this area of technological progress. Thank you all for everything you're doing, blah, blah, blah. In my opinion, he's trying really hard to be like his brother, and he's failing miserably. All right, let's move into our big story. I want to touch on this also while they were in New York. Remember, they did the Parents Network, which is basically a chat room. Only Harry and Meghan could make a promotional video for exploitation of grieving parents and self-glorification. I completely agree. They're hugging these grieving parents and they're filming it so that they can get good PR. I think it's terrible. And by the way, I did go on the Archwell site and I did look at these children. Some of these children weren't children. There were kids, and I'm air quoting, there were kids on the website 24 years old. The second you hit 18, you are a legal adult, and a large majority of these kids were 18 and up. So yeah. All right, let's move on. Here we go. So Harry went to the Legends of Aviation Award, where, remember last year they gave him the award and they compared him to Neil Armstrong, which was just a joke. But it was the 22nd annual Living Legends of Aviation Award ceremony. Supposedly it was hosted by John Travolta, and it was at the Beverly Hilton last night. So Harry gets up on the stage. Oh my God. He goes, "Good evening, everybody. I feel like I've picked the short straw, not from being up here, but somebody had to host a bunch of pilots and firefighters." Then he pointed out into the audience and goes, "That's where they are." Really, nobody was laughing. It's very awkward. He continued on, "There are 5 tables, I know, and I agreed with the organizers that they divided. Let's get them along. But I did not agree to host 2 of the tables." Everybody's like, "What?" Here's the next weird thing that happened. It was reported that he walked in, gave his speech, and was out in 11 minutes. And the reason for that was because of what happened to Virginia Giuffre. We're going to cover that in my next video tomorrow. But apparently, right as the news broke, they hurried Harry into a car and took him away. I guess he didn't want to be, associated with that particular bit of news. But what I really find interesting is that he was allowed to come back after the horrible thing he said about John Travolta at the event last year where he was given his award. Remember, he looked up at John Travolta and goes, "I bet you dine out all the time on the memory of dancing with my mom." Everybody was just horrified. I mean, what a horrible thing to say. It's just terrible. I don't get it. Harry is so inappropriate, really, at most of the times. The fact that Harry is the one who eats out on his mother's memory constantly just made that jibe even worse, in my opinion. Anyway, all right. He at least gave a speech that somebody else wrote for him. The jokes were bad. They landed badly, and he made a fool of himself yet again. All right, I want your comments on this one. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. Then go down into the description box where you'll find the links to my Twitter, Gettr, Rumble, email, Amazon wishlist, a link to my second channel, a link to my father's book, which is still up for sale, as well as a physical address. For those of you who've donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.